Southern New England's best. This is 1460 WXBR Brockton.
Welcome back to the program. Hey, all the surrounding communities here within the sound of the voice of this radio program, I want you to listen tight right now. It was just maybe about 5 years ago that this particular city of Brockton, Massachusetts, admitted to the fact that they had some gang problems. Before that, it was just general crime and kids not doing good things. Well, more and more across this country, people are calling it what it is and not being afraid to say that they've got some gang problems that are really starting to screw up their communities. And it's a problem because these are troubled youth, yet at the same time, there's violence and death that is connected to this. Well, there's a great book that's come out. Bobby Kipper is the founder of the National Center for the Prevention of Community Violence, and he joins us now. Good morning, Bobby.
Good morning. How are you, Ron?
Good. Thanks for being with us. I guess the premise is indeed that most communities still haven't come to terms with what this is really about, this violence.
Absolutely. We see that all over America, that there are still communities in denial, especially when you get outside of the larger cities. Mm-hmm. And all the indications are from the national research is that is extremely where the gang problem seems to be growing in our suburban and rural areas of America. So we're real concerned with it, and we're concerned about the denial.
Well, I guess if you find some sneakers hanging from your telephone wire over your main street, it's not because they're celebrating the athletic department.
That would be a true statement. That's true.
Yeah. I guess a lot of communities would feel like they're not admitting it because it would say to its people that that we've got quote unquote urban problems and we're not the tight-knit community we thought we were.
Absolutely. I think part of the problem is it really doesn't really sound a real effort of economic development for leaders of communities who are talking about what a tremendous gang issue they have.
Yeah.
Sort of a silent insurgency that if you deal with it now, you're going to deal with it later when it becomes a tremendous issue with tragedy, and that's what we're concerned about.
A lot of the communities are pretty much saying that they need to drive the gang members out of their community, but then when you drive something out, you're just sending them somewhere else.
Well, I guess for years, traditionally what we've done in America is made the gang issue a law enforcement issue.
Yes.
When in reality, as you'll see in our book, No Colors, what we try to represent and what we try to present to communities is that we've got to come to grips with one basic issue, and that is that gangs just don't show up in the community. Right. A lot of gangs grow up in communities. And that's the premise for where we're going with the theme of the book is we need to realize this early and work harder to impact kids in a positive way to make sure they're making better choices than they're making. We can't just do what we've done because obviously the research shows it's not working.
I've been told, and I guess it's conventional wisdom, that a gang member is somebody who has moved on to a family that will accept them in comparison to their own family, which apparently doesn't understand them. Is that accurate?
That is very accurate. Kids are still making choices to gravitate to the people they connect those to. And obviously, if the street is going to pay more attention to them than their parents or to their individual communities or the neighborhoods, and they're going to seek out where they're going to get the attention. And that's exactly really what makes up a lot of the gang members and why they're so closely knit.
A lot of the communities, including this one in this area, and of course in Boston as well, think that if they have more programs for the youth and more things for the kids to do, that they will choose that over the gang violence. And it's my feeling that doesn't replace the gang, but the community thinks like if we just give them somewhere to go, that'll solve the problem.
Well, I don't think it totally will solve the problem. I think that it's part of an overall strategy. What we've got to start doing, Ron, is we've got to stop depending on just programs. We tend to want to throw programs at kids and programs at communities. What No Colors advocates is bringing everyone together in the community. And as you said this morning, I mean, a realization is to, number one, admit there's a problem. Yeah. And number two, gather the strengths of the community and put together a strategy to deal with it, whether it be prevention programs or finding young people who are now in gangs. we think that once a child joins a gang, they want to stay in a gang, and that's really not true. A lot of these kids really understand once they get over their heads that they want to go back to some type of productive lifestyle.
Yeah.
Well, communities have got to have an overall strategy on how to deal with those type of issues, and so we advocate strategies and not programs.
It would sound like that if there are people that were in gangs and then they get out and find a better life, wouldn't these people be the answers to educating those that are still in it? But that doesn't necessarily work. I don't.
Well, it does work. It's part of an overall strategy. I mean, we cannot be scared of people because they make bad choices. And in a lot of communities, some of these young people have made some bad choices. They've joined some gangs, and you're right. Some of these people have been very productive. Some of our intervention efforts that we're seeing across America that we highlight have been very, very productive in getting kids back in the right direction. And when that occurs, I do think they're great ambassadors for other children and for other young people who are making some bad choices. I think we have to pull all of our stops. I don't think we have to be afraid. Just in the last 2 years alone, the FBI has reported a 40% increase in gang membership 2 years in America. That's sort of scary when you think about what that could do to individual communities.
Well, it's very scary because they can be killers.
They can be killers. We have well over 1,400,000 that is documented gang members in this country, and just we think those numbers are very short because those are the only ones that we have on police record. I imagine it's a whole lot greater than that number.
It's interesting because you're an ex-cop.
Exactly.
And yet you're claiming that law enforcement is not really the answer.
That's true. I served, and that's one of the stories that we bring to No Colors and what we're advocating. It's not that I haven't been there on the road, on the street, dealing with these people one-on-one and dealing with this as a community problem. I saw a long time ago when I was on the police department for 26 years, and about 10 years in, I knew that enforcement alone would not solve the issue of stopping gangs in communities. I knew that we needed to really, roll up our sleeves in our communities and develop community strategies. And I've advocated that for a long time. It's just been, to this point, they were able to bring it into one place to say, now we have the proof that law enforcement alone is not working. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not doing everything they can. I'm just saying that they will not, in and of itself, solve the problem.
Is there an organization that you deal with or that you are in that where urban areas and rural areas can actually turn to them and say, we have problems? If they admit that, we need to seek answers. There must be some success stories somewhere. Do you marry these success stories?
Absolutely. We have. That's why the title of the book is No Colors, 100 Ways to keep gangs from taking away your communities, because what we have done is we have extremely researched across the country. There are a lot of good things being done in America, including some right there in the Boston area. And one of the things that a lot of communities are starting to do and not be afraid of is turn to the faith-based community and open up the dialogue of what faith-based can do. We're not talking about simply passing out scripture. We're talking about going and giving, job training, tutoring for education purposes, really going out and reaching, putting their arms around kids and saying, look, there are people in communities that care about you other than the gang. For years we turned to government to try to solve this problem. And what we have learned, and even in a program that I ran in Richmond, Virginia, the Richmond Gang Reduction Program, it's not about government. This is about embracing the spirit of community and bringing that. My understanding of the entire issue to get above the problem is to grow your community and shrink the role of what people have to do to turn to some of the organized government programs. And that comes from faith-based nonprofits, boys and girls clubs, the like, things about people that can step forward and say, we don't have any restraints on us. We can go out and really care for these kids.
Are there any numbers that you've put together, for example, that where most crimes in the community are gang-related? I mean, is that one of the realizations?
It is a realization. As a matter of fact, in some of the latest statistics, in a lot of the larger homicide problems that we're having in America, close to 80% of those homicides are now gang-related. And that part of the problem is that because gangs have now taken over a lot of the street drug dealing and street trafficking that goes on across America.
Right, and it's a territorial situation too, which makes it almost. I'm not comparing the mafia to a gang, but it has the intimidation factor, it has a territorial factor, etc.
Well, you're not far off in really comparing that, Ron, to be honest with you, because in order for drugs to be trafficked in an area, there's got to be some real organization of that. Right. And may not be called mafia, but it can be called, local syndromes that really are very organized, much more than even some of our intel and law enforcement can grab a hold of at this point.
Wow. Can communities get in touch with you personally?
Yes, they can. They can certainly. The book No Colors is now online, and they can get in touch with me personally by contacting me. And I reside in Virginia, and if they go online and look for the National Center for the Prevention of Community Violence, they can see how to contact us there. We're willing to work with any and all communities.
That's wonderful. This is probably one of the most important interviews we've done in a while, and I appreciate your time on this and what you're doing. And again, what is the website that people can get some general information?
You can go to www.solveviolence.com, or you can actually go to the book No Colors, and it is available now, of course, on Amazon and at the bookstores. Probably
worse than actually having a community that has extensive gang problems is being a parent, knowing that your child is somewhat involved in it and can't really do anything about it.
Absolutely, and we speak to that. We'd like to say to parents and challenge them. In No Colors, we actually show you ways that you can tell whether your child is in a gang. Right. And then, what we want to make sure people understand is just because people make these choices, we can't throw them out. We have to, you have to go back. You have to go get them. And we also have some recommendations on what to do if you know your child's in a gang.
Yeah. It's interesting because you're kind of stuck in the middle because these are people that really are in trouble. They're perhaps criminals by the eyes of the law, but they're also people that are just kind of lost and looking for the right place to go. And so you don't want to evilize them, but at the same time, that's the effect on society. But they're really people that are misguided.
Well, we have to really believe that simply because a person makes a negative choice, and of course we get to the extreme of crime where people are engaged in extremely violent crime, and there are just some ways that you're not going to be able to rescue everyone. But at the same time, when you have people that are showing signs of getting involved in early delinquency and some early gang involvement, that is not the time to give up on these young people, and it's certainly not the time to give up on your overall community, because if you give up on the young people, you're actually giving up on your community as a whole. We know that kids are now recruited as early as 9 and 10 years old to join these gangs, not just in our big cities, but also in our rural and suburban areas, which, by the way, Ron, was the largest increase in that 40% in the last 2 years.
Yes, there's no question about it. It doesn't have to be a depressed urban area to have that type of activity and those youths that are in trouble. Well, thank you again, Bobby Kipper. Very interesting stuff.
Well, thanks for having me, Ron. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.